Hello and welcome to my thoughts and impressions on the playtest for the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. So it is it's been in beta a few days now. I'm recording this after they've just released the second map onto it, and it's so far so good. So I've got about half a dozen hours. In fact, I think I've just peaked at about 7-ish hours so far. So I'm a decent way in. By no means take this as like a review for the finished product. I think they've still got a couple months to go, and we've not seen the whole thing here. In fact, we haven't even seen like the loadouts and skills and things yet. So I might end up doing a full review at the end. So keep an eye out for that potentially. But this is just my initial thoughts based on the public play test that's been running through the end of May here. So far, essentially going into this, initially you're gonna compare it with other games in the genre. Um, Things like Dead by Daylight, you're gonna compare it to things along the lines of what else is there now? There's Last Year and Friday the 13th and um, I think Outlast Trials has just recently released, but that's not a PvP one, it's like PvE. Um, But you begin to get the idea that it's a small but growing genre of games. Um, Part of the reason I think is that um, a lot of AAA companies are avoiding it for the most part. In fact, this is probably one of the most AAA efforts we've had. In fact, well, no, they included that resistance mode on Resident Evil 3, which kind of counts as a sort of asymmetric thing like this. I think other than that, it would be years ago with something like Evolve, which went down like a lead balloon. But honestly, you look back at Evolve now, and it kind of died on it was dead on arrival due to some balance issues and people claiming that it was too greedy and full of too many microtransactions for cosmetic items. You look back at it now, and it just released with like I think it must have been like you could basically spend as much as repurchasing the game on skin changes and things on launch, and it was a bit ridiculous, but holy crap, compared to these days, it was nothing. That was the tip of the oncoming iceberg. So maybe now it'd do a bit better, but anyway. So it's a game that's sort of asymmetric, X amount of killers versus X amount of survivors, and the teams aren't necessarily balanced. If you've not been playing much and you're looking for a bit of a rundown of how the game goes, and I've got some footage in the background here that you can watch while I'm just yammering on. You can either watch my first video for a more in-depth look, but essentially, you start as a survivor. You're in the basement with Bubba, who's well with Leatherface. He's got the chainsaw revving, and you've got to avoid him, get out of the basement, get upstairs and find a way out. You need to find an exit. There's a few options available to you. One requires a fuse. One requires you to get a valve like this valve wheel thing and to attach it to a pump and open it up, and then a gate opens. And the other two gates, you just have to disable a generator that is electrifying them so that you can't leave. Assuming that the killers turned the generators on, they can forget to do that, though I think they'll forget to do it less and less as time goes by. Um, but that's what you've got to do. You've got a choice of 4 different survivors, and there are 3 different killers. There will always be a Leatherface. Um, there are other than Leatherface, though, there are 4 other killers that you can choose from. I don't know how exactly this will work in the game, in the full title here. If certain ones are tied to certain maps, I don't know, but so far I've seen that many are available. You've also got a choice of survivors again in the beta here. There's 4, and there's 4 of you. You can't change which survivor you are once it's just been randomly selected for you. Presumably in the full game you can. But there will be at least confirmed there's going to be a 5th survivor, and you see her get killed at the beginning here. So I'm assuming in the full game you'll select from the 5, and the one that you don't select is the one that Bubba kills at the beginning. Probably. Again, can't say for certain. They each have a unique skill, and we've seen me use it here a few moments ago. I shoulder barged Leatherface there, and the others have other powers. I think Anna can avoid taking damage for a bit, and there's one that can insta-do locks, insta-complete locks, one that can hear nearby enemies, and one that can... What's the other power? So shoulder barge locks that. I've completely forgotten what the other power is now. Yeah. One's locks, one's a shoulder barge, one's hearing around them. Ah, yeah, one's taking less damage. Yeah, I think that's all of them covered, right? So far. So, what are my thoughts on this? So the playing the killers is quite interesting because you've got three different killers with very different abilities. One of the quite interesting things, because in Dead by Daylight it's very important that you can loop and you know how to loop. With this it's less so. Once you get through a crack in the wall or a crawl space in the wall or something, you're safe. That's it. You are safe. They probably can't get to you. The hitchhiker can follow you slowly. The cook can still kind of hear you and come after you because he's got an ability where he can hear you and it lets him like detect you through walls. But it takes him a moment to use that, and again, so you're not kind of being hounded down as you are in Dead by Daylight. You can easily escape them. But it solves one of the issues with Dead by Daylight, which, when that first released, my god, the issues it had with infinite loops, or people using combinations of perks to create loops, or things like that. There are no loops here. You cannot get looped. I mean, you can, but there's 3 killers. They will close in on your position, and they will absolutely kill you. There is no issue with looping. As long as the killers are semi-coordinated, you will not have an issue with looping. So, as a survivor, you have to be more... It's a much more stealthy approach. Like you'll see here, I'm just hiding in a bush. The killer is nearby. If you're wondering as well, by the way, it has its own version of the heartbeat from Dead by Daylight. As you can see there, so like the screen kind of looks like a heat haze is on you or something. It goes all orange around the edges. That is, you are in the killer's radius sort of thing. That's the early warning system for your character. So here we don't quite go for the door. We're just kind of looking around, making sure we're actually safe. Because obviously it doesn't mean that they have direct line of sight to you. The closer they get as well, it'll start to, you'll see like film grain on it, and it gets worse and worse as the killer gets closer. It doesn't indicate that they're chasing you, and that's part of this game. Again, it's all about stealth rather than just running around like a nut job, right? I don't know if the skills and loadouts later on, when the game fully releases, will allow you to do that, but even playing as this guy who can shoulder barge a killer, it has a long cooldown, and it only stuns them for a few seconds. It's like getting a pallet stun on someone in Dead by Daylight. It's like doing that. It is not a massive, whoa, I've knocked them to the ground and then they're down there for like 30 seconds or something stupid. No, and it has a long multi-minute cooldown. You are not powerful. You can even grab like little bone shivs from around, usually found in the basement, but you can find them upstairs in some places. And they'll get you away from a killer once. You can like charge at the killer, grapple them, and stick them with this bone shard, and it will briefly stun them. And I mean briefly. Again, you are not powerful here. You are not you are not just running them around forever. There are more of them. There's multiple of them. They are armed. You are not, and they can easily run you around. While you can easily run them around, if they just gang up on you, you're gone. Which I kind of like. One thing I would like though would be like a ping system. At least for the killers, maybe not so much with the survivors, or maybe with the survivors it should only work on objectives, say, for example. So, for example, a survivor could perhaps ping an item or ping an objective or something like that to communicate with other survivors, but I don't think they should be able to ping killer locations. The killers, I think, should absolutely be able to ping survivor locations and objectives that might be needing some attention. So I would like to see that because I think it would definitely help with their coordination. So as you can see here, I've gone to get an unlock tool to open this door up, and by the time I've got back there, someone else has gone through and opened it up for me. So there's, yeah, you don't just beeline to the exits, but you're not just sat doing gens and skill checks all the time. So you can see here, someone's managed to get out. So we could head over there and try to get out as well. So, and I think that is part of one thing I would say I'd like to see an improvement with would be kind of just your awareness in the game. Now, it does have voice chat. There is in-game VoIP as standard for this game. If you can believe it, it just has it there. Something that Dead by Daylight has never had. Other games have gone and done this. I think Friday the 13th had proximity voice chat, and then you could make it map wide if you had a walkie-talkie, assuming the other person also had a walkie-talkie. So there's with this, they kind of just accept that look, third-party voice chat providers are a thing on PC. You can try and do some cute thing with the in-game voice chat, but in the end, people who use third-party voice chat will have an advantage. They always have, they always will. And here we kind of shoulder barge him. I'm hoping that the gate's open, and it is not, so the killers can close the exits as well. So we kind of have to jump back down here, and he gets us as we go, so we kind of fall, but we jump back down in order to stay alive, but now we know that that exit's closed. So yeah, and that is something as well with the chasing. So I mentioned that you've got multiple killers on you and that, and I do prefer that. It's one of the problems with Dead by Daylight is playing a killer. It could be very frustrating. That it's nice to see that just built into the game's core systems, it's gone, right? Other issues, like I say, I think pinging systems would be better for map awareness, keeping it clued in on things. I would like to, I want to say as well, just on the subject of chasing and that, there's way more than pallets here, and it's not just a visual change. One character can follow you through these. Yeah, the hitchhiker, the one that just stabbed us, can actually go through these cracks. They can go through the crawl spaces. The cook can't go through anything. However, Bubba, with the chainsaw, he can thrust the chainsaw in after you as you try to sneak through, and that can get you. He can also saw these, like these desk drawers that we're climbing over. He can saw them in half. He can also remove doors and close off crawl spaces. When he does this, they are destroyed permanently and can never be brought back. If say the chef or the hitchhiker just close off a crawl space or something, you can kind of open it back up as a survivor. But if Bubba destroys it, it's gone. And the same with the chests and things that you can vault over. So Bubba is louder and he can't go through things. He can't even climb up ladders and that. So he's very immobile and bad in terms of agility, but he just absolutely goes through like a wrecking ball. And every kill is unique in that because they've all got different traversal mechanics. So it makes the chases a lot more interesting, because going through certain routes will make you safe from some killers, but leave you vulnerable if it's others. So you have to kind of be aware of that. Which again, it's adding these layers of complexity to the chase, which is part of the core gameplay loop, which is always good. It's like when you have a shooting game, and well, now it's got gun attachments and things like that. It's adding more complexity and making just a better game as a whole. So a lot to be liked there. On the killer side of things, so to prevent the killers just kind of getting ruffle stomped by some kind of survivor SWAT group just turning up where they're all on voice comms and obliterate you. So you have a number of tools at your disposal. Like, first of all, again, there's 3 of you now. It's not just you on your own, on your lonesome, feeling like you're running around playing whack-a-mole with people as they dance around you. Because the chasers, well, again, because there's so many of you and you can group up on them, and again, it's not so much about running around away from you while others do things. It's more about being stealthy, sneaking up, trying to do things. So like here, you can see I'm trying to find out where this power lead goes so that I can go and turn it off to unelectrify that gate. I've got everything I need. I've got a tool to go and open the gate with to pick the lock. I've got my health in case I need it. And I just need to get this sorted. But the issue here is that you can see there that pile of bones, and that's the trap set by the hitchhiker. I don't have a tool that you can use to disarm that. You need a bone shard, like a little shiv thing, to disarm it. And I don't have one, so I just kind of have to either take that on the chin, break out of the trap, and then get to doing the generator, and I hit a dead end there, and I'm just running, nowhere really to go. So I can't really get out of this, and I go down here. And it just kind of shows you that you can easily be caught out by killers using a good strategy here. I didn't have the tool to deal with that, and I went down because of it. But of course, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. You can just go over, like I said, take the trap on the chin and, well, on the leg in this case. But just take the trap's hit, get out of it, then do the car battery that's powering that gate, and leave. Open the gate up, get the gate open, and just go. You'd have to be quick and just hope you outrun them, and that they're not prowling nearby, but you can't always tell, so... Like, the person playing as Sunny here, he gets there, he realises that, okay, that he's probably not played it much before. I was wondering if he has to interact with that to stop the electricity. Nope. Follows the power cable, and he's going to have a go. But now that the trap, I think, yep, the trap is still there. As you can see, he's now giving off noise notifications because he's getting out of the trap. But the others are chasing after the girl, so he's looked out there a little bit. But like I said, as the killers, you don't feel alone and powerless, and that the survivors are the ones dictating the flow of the game anymore. It's very much in your hands, and the hands of your allies as well, which I much prefer. I do much prefer that. Once everyone's, but to stop it from just being this survivor-centric thing and them just waiting around until you're not looking at the objectives anymore and you're just sat there guarding all the time, there's a number of things that you are kind of tasked with doing in addition to this to just keep the game flowing in the meantime. So, in addition to just in general hunting survivors down and guarding objectives, you can collect blood for grandpa, and this is a mechanic I really like. It's not in the other games. I've not seen anything really like it in any of the other kind of games in this genre, really. He's basically like an active UAV from Call of Duty. It's ridiculous. If you feed blood to grandpa on the map, he will mark the survivors for you. He'll do it every so often, and the more blood you feed him, the lower the cooldown is. And of course, so you're lowering the cooldown, but he's got different levels. So level 1, 2, 3, he will have a decreased cooldown, decreased cooldown, decreased cooldown. In fact, the first level activates him. So he's not even doing it at the start. You have to activate the ability. So it's kind of like I say, it's nice to see that the killers, even the ones that aren't oriented around finding the survivors, still have the ability to actually find them by other means, by using by feeding Grandpa blood. There are these little like bowls throughout the map that they'll fill up slowly, and you grab them. You like fill your bottle up from these bowls, and you can take it to him. It's not much, but it's like a little drip feed of it that you can keep giving to him. And what it will do is when he gets to level 3, he's got these really short cooldowns, he's constantly highlighting you, but you don't always get hit by it because you can avoid it by just staying still. And you might have seen notifications in that last game that were just shown of me having to stay still or I'll be detected, right? Now, he's got 2 more levels after that. At level 4, I think it says he detects you in shadows. I'm not entirely certain what it means, but I think it means that there's better detect. I'm not entirely certain what it means actually. I don't think it's. Maybe it highlights if you're hiding in a spot or something. I'm not entirely certain, but there's definitely a what's it? At level 5, yeah, there's an end game to it. If you max him out with blood, what will happen is literally you will just straight up have a constant active UAV. It's constantly on. You know, Grandpa Vision will literally, the survivor is always highlighted, even if they hide. There's no more any escape. You just go and get them. So it means that the game is essentially on a timer. In addition to this, as the survivors get more and more damaged, they start losing health over time. The idea here is that, as you see at the start, when you're tied up in that, you have been captured, you have been beaten, you have been tortured. You are bleeding out from the very beginning of the game. You slowly lose health, though not very much and not very quickly. But as more survivors die and as the game progresses, it becomes more and more, and as the last survivor, you automatically go straight to like full-on bleed out. So right at the end, you're bleeding like a stuck pig here at that point, and you have to get out. You've got to go. So it kind of, again, it answers that question as to what's the end game. What happens if the game's going on too long? Can both sides end up in a stalemate? The answer is no, you cannot end up in a stalemate. The survivors lose if they take too long. It's very killer-centric, this game. I think a lot of these horror games, a lot of them aren't killer-centric. They feel survivor-centric. And it shouldn't really be the case. You shouldn't feel safe. It is, in the end, it's a horror game, not some kind of action-adventure. So I think it should be that way around. I think it actually should give the survivors more points for winning in these types of games. The survivors, or whoever is on that sort of side, they should always have more points. But I think it should be way less likely that they actually win. And we see there the survivors getting brave for the first time there. One just shoulder barged me and they're trying to get away. But just managing it. And then we can kind of see here, I can destroy that crawl space so that it's no longer going to get used for the rest of the game. So again, it's the killers have a lot of tools at their disposal, and there's a lot of killers chasing you. It's very much killer centric, I would say. I think you are way more likely to win as killer. And again, it's nice. It's quite nice having that. I think it's been, having played a bit of Dead by Daylight for a number of years, I eventually stopped playing killer because I was getting run around so often. Especially when I'd go away from I'm getting stabbed as well. So they definitely can run up on you and they can fight back, but not in a crazy way. Like you can see, I'm already back on the job here. But yeah, having played a lot of Dead by Daylight, I got eventually put off by playing as killer. It seemed I had to be way more on the ball and playing it really sweatily and competitively, even at the lower ranks, just in order to, tread water and get a reasonable amount of points. And when I had a good game, everyone would complain, you camped, or you can't, or you're using that perk combination, how dare you, when they'd all have self-heal, sprint burst, whatever meta perks at the time, dead hard and that sort of thing. It's nice, but it's just, again, it's killer centric. You're way less likely to survive a survivor. You feel powerful and you're not pressured, and it's nice and chill. And because there's 3 of you, it's actually a decent chance you get to play as killer. It's nearly a 50% chance that you're going to be. 3 in 7 chance that you'll be playing as a killer in the game, as opposed to it being a 1 in 5 when you go on Dead by Daylight. And God help you if you want to get in a queue as one and just wait around for 10 minutes, whatever. I mean, the queuing's probably not as bad as that, but it's a nice breath of fresh air. And there isn't as much pressure on you as the 1 versus the 4. So I like the multiple killers, actually. It's something I really like about this. Getting kind of close to the end of everything I wanted to mention at this point. So just one thing as well. I want to praise the game just on the variety of the objectives here. They're not too difficult, especially once you've figured out how to do them and you've got a bit of map knowledge. But they're spawning randomly so that you're still kept on your toes each game. And the amount of different tools you can find and acquire, and the different steps in order to get out, it's quite interesting. It's a lot more interesting to it than sitting doing gens and you're doing the same thing every single game. There's more strategy to it and teamwork and that, and it feels a lot better the way that this is done. And not only just the objectives as well, but just in general on the map, having the slide spots, the crawl spaces, and then just the regular doors, and each killer having different traversal rules to them, and some, like Bubba being able to seal them off. It adds a lot of variety again to chase, and it's more than just pallets, and there's more hiding spots than the same reused locker in every location that looks a little bit out of place. It feels more realistic and like an actual house and things because it's got that. It kind of, something that's just one of them little things that bugs me about Dead by Daylight and things is just, it's like, okay, it's the same locker as a hiding spot everywhere. Why? It's because it was made by a small indie team and the game cost 15 quid 7 years ago. And they only had the budget to make, the time and budget to make a single hiding spot, which they then reused everywhere. It's probably time now, especially when they're a bigger studio and they're probably close to really almost like a independent AAA sized studio at this point. You'd expect them to be adding more hiding spots that are, that have different looks and are more varied to suit the maps better, to look better. And you'd think they'd do the same with, again, the pallets. Like, okay, you're throwing a pallet in front of something, why not, I don't know, some furniture that's lying around, or, you know, anything, just something that's different. But, yeah, but I'm saying that, I will say they do reuse the same set of drawers that you saw through everywhere. It could use more obstacles for that, but just kudos on the whole, having different objects that are used rather than just reusing them. It's a nice touch that makes it just, it's one of them little bits of polish that you do notice. So before I finish this up, I'm just going to do a quick talk about the loadouts and skills and that. And now that they're not confirmed on what exactly you're going to have and what you can do, I know that some of the skills that are available. For example, I know that with what's it? I think it is the survivors. They all have the same perks, and I think they're all to do with seeing objectives. Like at the start of the map, you can see the doors exiting the basement. That is a perk. The little icon in the bottom right activates when you're doing it. I'm not entirely certain what all the different perks will be and the little, skills, abilities, that sort of thing. But a few things that I'd like to see that I'll just mention here. I would love to see in these perks and abilities, I'd love to see something that increases survivor inventory size. Not by much, but I would love to see, like, hey, you can have survivor inventory +1, maybe, as a perk. So maybe there's a single perk in the game that will give you +1 inventory slots or something. I think that inventory slots will be probably the most powerful thing you could give a survivors, given that how the maps tend to work out here. Well, how the matches work out. I think that an inventory slot would probably be, if not the most, then the most powerful thing. If not one of them, the most powerful thing, easily. I wouldn't want to see anything about, because it can wreck these sort of games, and every perk in Dead by Daylight that's ever had anything to do with movement speed has always been nerfed at some point. It's really one of those things that I think they just shouldn't touch. Just don't touch that stat. It's like when shooting games decide to add a perk, or a weapon attachment that increases damage. Because, oh my god, the amount of problems that can cause, the didn't quite one-shot your sniper rifle, suddenly now one-shots you. And you get that sort of thing. It's like, certain guns that would kill you in 3 shots now kill you in 2. It's that sort of thing. It's like the equivalent of that on this genre of games. It really needs to avoid the movement speed bonus. I think I wouldn't want to see anything along those lines. I think it should, given that the game's more about stealth, I think that things like highlighting objectives or increasing your ability to do certain actions would probably be the way to go. And I do think there is like an underlying stat system. I'm not certain on this, but I'm sure certain survivors take longer or shorter amounts of time to do things. And it does appear that there's a similar effect going with killers, I think, but yeah, with survivors, there's definitely certain ones that are better at being quiet, they generate less noise when they do actions, others do more progress on objectives they're interacting with, and items they're interacting with, but at the cost of making more noise, and that is definitely a thing I've noticed. I think the guy's called Leyland that I've played as. Whenever he does anything that seems to be like strength oriented, like opening little crawl space and things, He seems to do it really quick, but he makes tons of noise. Whereas Connie seems to be able to interact with things. They don't do much progress, but they are incredibly quiet. So she can just stand there doing the interaction for a good long while before having to stop. And here you can see as well, when they've activated something, you can't just immediately go up and turn it off. So it gives them a bit of a fighting chance here. So we can't just turn off the fuse box that opens up the basement. We have to wait for a while before it then goes off. And now if I want to escape from that path again, it's closed. So that's another thing as well. The ways out, often, I think it's the valve gate and the fuse gate, will only stay open for a little while. But they are the safer bets to go for, because obviously the others, the killers can just turn back on. They can just turn the generators back on that electrify them. But yeah, so I think like being able to, personally, I'd have loved to create my own character and just have like cosmetics and things for them, and maybe have like the classics from the original films and that as perhaps like a preset that you could use. That, I think that'd be fair enough. But it looks like no, there's set characters. They're going the route of no, these are the characters from the original films. They have these abilities that we've ordained and that, but you can mix up their like these perks that they get on top of their main abilities. So from the looks of things, it will be to do with, from what I've seen, is highlighting objects, things like that. I would like the ability to, yeah, if that's what it's going to be more like, maybe there could be ones that highlight objectives when you're interacting with them or something on those lines. I can confirm that there's going to be private lobbies, so that should be nice. Right, and in addition to private lobbies, as I mentioned, I think there's at least 2 more killers, 1 more survivor, so there's still a lot to come and still a lot to see yet. I think that, I'm sure I saw in one of the tooltips on here that one of the other characters is going to be called Sissy, and they're going to have something to do with poisoning. But yeah, I'm hoping to see a nice amount of like deep customization. One of the issues I always had with Dead by Daylight is that you've got loads of perks, and the problem is they've kept adding more and more perks to the point where now it's like, okay, there's 1,000,000,001 perks, but you can only pick 4. They keep adding new perks each season. It takes them time and effort and money to add these perks to the game, and they do nothing because, well, you can only have 4. There's the opportunity cost. Why would I take this perk when I have another better perk? Which the only way they're going to make you take the new perk is if it's better. But then you get power creep in the game where each season the new killer comes out with better perks, and you don't want that. Just you don't want survivors with, oh, I've just got the super mega perk, I can sprint for 2 minutes straight. So long as I remember to stretch first, You want to avoid that, so. But one thing I do hope they do is I would love to see some kind of like stat system where maybe you get to select like, oh, I can allocate so many stats or something at the beginning. This was something not quite in Friday the 13th, the game that came out, but each character in that did have different amounts of skill skill points in things. So some were better at remaining stealthy, some were better at running, some were better at using weapons and that. Others were faster at interacting and completing objectives. And I would like to see, again, some kind of stat system where I can do something like that and allocate them. It would be quite nice. All that aside, though, I think, generally speaking here, again, visually it's brilliant. I've heard there are some performance hiccups, people are having bugs, but it is a test, it's a technical test, I mean, it says at the bottom there, technical test, technical test. This is a technical test. Did you know about it being a test? So yes, it is. It is a test. It is subject to change. It will probably change. I'm betting that everything's pretty much in the can at this point on their end, and that this test is basically just let's squash the last bugs and get the day one patch ready. Other than that, it's probably just mostly most of them getting, like I say, getting that day one patch ready, making sure the bugs are squashed, making sure as well that the servers are ready, everything's going, and getting a bit of publicity and press around it and building up the hype, because you only get one launch, you know, they've got to build up the hype a bit before launch. It's a good way of doing that. We've seen lots of games doing this, but these little bugs, like what you want to see here is that maybe there's a few imbalances and a few bugs. This is a brilliant technical test. It's fantastic, because what that means is that there've only a few things to sort out before launch. If this was horrific, I mean, if this was like the Battlefield 2042 technical test that came out, what were it, like a week before the launch of the goddamn game or something, and there were just tanks that could fly, it's like, okay, this is bad. There's no way this is going to be fixed before release. They've still got, I think this comes out at the end of August. So there's still all of summer that this has to get ready, get its makeup done, get its best dress on, and get ready for us at the end of August. They have plenty of time to fix these last bugs, possibly even implement a few new features maybe that just shore up some issues in the gameplay loop maybe that they've found or something like that, or just make some changes that people have suggested or whatever. So it seems to be in a good spot. I think you'd be, you know, if you're the type who doesn't pre-order, then by all means wait for reviews. But if you are looking to get it, it looks pretty solid so far. There have been some performance issues I'm hearing and bugs, but less than most. As far as games go, there's been a lot fewer issues with this that I've been hearing about compared to a lot of other tests, so it seems fairly solid so far. The only issues that I've noticed, as far as like again the gameplay is concerned, I would like to see better tutorials. The tutorial at the moment, I'm assuming it's just a placeholder while they're running this test. The tutorial, it is literally a video with some closed captions at the bottom. It's not even a... Oh, and this is... If you've got a bone shard, I mentioned you could always fight them back and stun them for a while. That's it in action if you're wondering. Muggins McGee there next to me though, he could have used his shoulder barge. Didn't. Left me to deal with that. Nearly got me killed. Anyway. Point is though here, where this is... Yeah, I think a tutorial, much better than what they've currently got, would be incredibly useful. Definitely something they should go for. Yeah, absolutely needs it. Even if it's just a quick tutorial that, you know, it just shows you the gates that you can open. You know, just puts you in like an open field. Here are the 3 different exit gates you can use, you know. Look out for these on the map, you know. Go as a killer and... Oh, this is how you use their ability, and... You should turn this generator on to electrify the gates before you wander off and leave everything unlocked and unguarded. Because I've seen a lot of people doing some very questionable things. You might have noticed in some of the footage with people not quite knowing what to do with objectives and that. And that sort of thing. If you've watched me if you watched any of my clips or even anyone else's, you'll notice they might be on spectate watching people and be like, what are they doing? Or they themselves might be going, I have no idea what to do with this. One of the things that I think is an issue, traps. Traps are an issue as well already. They are technically balanced, but I think there are bugs and they don't tell you how to disarm them. I had to look this up, and I only found it out because I saw someone like actually disarming in a YouTube video. and it just happened to be on a video. It wasn't one that was labelled as a tutorial or anything, so, and it wasn't in the Steam discussions or on the website or on a Reddit post or anything. It's hard to figure out. You need a bone shard, and you can use that to disarm traps. Or if you are stuck in a trap, it will get you out of it immediately. Normally when you walk up to an item that you can't interact with, it will tell you need an unlock tool. It will tell you require a fuse to use this. It doesn't tell you that on the traps. I'm guessing it's so that it doesn't give away that the trap is there, but I would assume if you are crouched up next to the trap, it should probably fade in over like half a second and be like, oh, you've noticed the trap. We'll just fade this text in. Requires bone shard to disarm. It should just do that if you're crouched next to it. Niche case, but I think it's one of those that they just need to put in, or if not, explain it in a tutorial, which I'm again hoping they put in. Because for tutorials, again, the issue is there just aren't any at the moment and there's not enough explanation. But yes, you can disarm traps if you've got stuck with that. But the glitch that I mentioned with them is that sometimes you will do it and you'll just get sucked into them anyway. So you'll go, press the interact button and instead get caught by the trap. So there's issues with traps. And they can put them right in front of an objective, which I've no problems with, but you need to be able to disarm them. It should be clear how you do that. Other than that, though, like I say, it's absolutely excellent game. Very much been enjoying my time with it. And I think that it will be a great addition to sort of this growing genre. I think it could use more entries. And I think that one of the issues is, I think that just Dead by Daylight has been established for 7 years now. To kind of move in and dethrone them would require probably a decent budget. It would probably require, a pretty decent budget and a lot of time and expense to be able to do that. And I think that's going to cause, it's going to cause issues. Because like I say, it needs some competition. This genre isn't going to move forward, and I want to see it move forward because there's a lot of unexplored space here. Yeah. The thing is, normally at this point, someone would go, we'll swoop in and make something better and compete with them. And they don't always do that. The reason why no one's dethroned Call of Duty for 20 plus years at the top spot is because no one has like a multi-million budget to be able to compete with them. The issue is that Call of Duty, say what you will, the gunplay is top notch, the customization's top notch. An indie team would waste their entire budget getting not even close to being able to top that. And so you don't get any competition in the shooter market except from the big AAA publishers that come around now and then and try and make an attempt every few years. So yeah, there's issues. I still remember just like the years surrounding Call of Duty, every AAA studio were making a first-person shooter. And it was Call of Duty, but with this thing. Call of Duty, but with that thing, Loads of shooters came out. And only Call of Duty, and I think the other main one was Battlefield. They're the only ones that stuck, and even Battlefield's faltered now. There's really very little competition, and the only time you get any competition in that scene is when a new subgenre comes out, like battle royales and extraction games and stuff. Because Call of Duty hasn't quite, lurched its all-encompassing tentacles onto that part of the market yet. So, and it's getting a bit like that with Dead by Daylight now. No one with an enormous budget is willing to go into this because they probably don't think that there's enough of an audience, and they know they'll have to compete with Dead by Daylight and outdo them. So yeah, there's issues there. But, and yeah, I think that's the issue when you're getting that with Dead by Daylight. the companies that could compete aren't willing to because they'll think that they'll not get enough money for the amount they'll have to invest in that. So we're not seeing AAA companies even step into that territory. So you get these AA companies that make the attempt, and this is probably one of the best attempts at it so far. Because the fact of the matter is, Dead by Daylight, they have not released a new game in that for, well, since the release of Dead by Daylight. There isn't a number 2, they've just kept updating the first, so I would love to see new mechanics. This is a brilliant step in that direction, because there's a lot of unexplored territory here. This sort of game you could do so much with, and so little is being tried. So I'm very excited to see this release and see its reception. My only worry is that they've kind of made a similar mistake to Friday the 13th, the game. Now, not the mistake that it released as an awful buggy mess that should be burnt off of your hard drive along with your internet history when you die, but it's made the mistake of basically it's lashed itself to the franchise of the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. Yeah? The Texas Chain Saw Massacre does not have many characters and killers. It has Leatherface. It has Leatherface's close family. And then it has a few survivors. You have a few victims, as they call them on this game. Which again, just adds to that whole, the survivors are not the ones in control. You're not a survivor, you're a victim in this game. Then little things that really help with the helplessness feeling of it. But yeah, you are not you are not going to have much to go with as a franchise, and that's my worry here. If you get in this game, keep in mind this may be all that you get. They might add, even with maps, I'm thinking, well, what maps can they add? And that would be my biggest issue with this game at the moment. I would be thinking, what maps are there? Like, what else are they going to add? Can they add more maps? Can they add additional can they add additional killers? Can they add additional... Well, no, they're lashed to this franchise. I think they're releasing this with the intent that it's going to get released and it's going to be done. Here's hoping that they do very well with this game, and then afterwards decide to do more. That after this they go, you know what, that was excellent, and you know what we should do? We should go and we should make another game, and maybe we'll see the same studio, instead of releasing DLC for this, because again it's Texas Chain Saw Massacre, they can't add more to that, they've lashed themselves to the franchise. Maybe it should be they go and do Halloween next, and then Friday the 13th, and they get the different franchises and do one for each. Maybe they'll do that. Or maybe they'll get the common sense to, okay, we'll make our own legally distinct killers that are inspired by kind of how Dead by Daylight started, with the Trapper, who is obviously Jason Voorhees. I don't know who the Wraith is meant to be, but he has he has like the Predator's power, but not real. I don't think he's particularly based on anything. But then there's the hillbilly who was clearly meant to be Leatherface, but they had to be legally distinct, and so then they eventually got the franchise, and that's why there's now there's Leatherface and then knockoff Leatherface in those games. But yeah, and on the issue of tutorials here that I've mentioned, you're going to see this person, I remember this game now, they try to get to the fuse door here, carrying the fuse, and it tells them to go and find the fuse box. And it's heartbreaking, it's like you get to the fuse door and it's like, no, the fuse box is upstairs, you have to put the fuse in there, turn open it up, and then go down and then get through the gate. Yeah, I think they've just noticed that it highlighted the fuse box over there on the screen for a few seconds, and they're realising the mistake now. I think it was at the wall of the slaughterhouse here. Yeah, I see on the left there on the wall, yeah. Needs better tutorials. Right, thank you for listening to this ramble. It's been a bit of a long one, but kind of, I like to go into depth on it, really get all the details covered. I don't want to miss anything out. I've got like a couple post-it notes here all with just things scribbled on it, like, ooh, mention this, mention that. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention, if you're wondering if there's going to be private lobbies, it does say in the menus on a tooltip. Private lobbies you won't earn XP for, but you can create them. That's apparently going to be a thing in the game. At the moment, there's only solo queue quick join. I don't know if you can part it with friends to quick join in multiplayer. I imagine you probably can, but it's probably not in the technical test yet. If you can't, I bet that people are screaming at them right now to add it, and they probably will before launch. I would be surprised if they didn't. But yeah, there's a lot to like here, and it feels like a modern version of Dead by Daylight, which is I think honestly what we want to see. Like here, this person can't loop them forever. They're trying to desperately, and they are just getting hacked at. And again, this bleed out mechanic, like you can see now, they're the last person. The little heart icon next to their sprint and health is just going, and they're slowly losing health because they've been getting hit and hit. Like it activates when you are the last person alive, but I think it also ticks down the more damage you've taken throughout the game. But that's what it looks like. Again, it's been a great technical test. I wish them all the best. I hope to see more. I just hope that they're not tied to this franchise and that they can come up with something either to expand upon it or add more. But I don't know how much they can do that when they are tied to the Texas Chain Saw Massacre franchise. But if they are, then release a sequel, release something that's of your own making, your own legally distinct characters and killers, and that's what I would do. Because I think there's a lot of room to explore in this space here. Like you could have, instead of people dying and not coming back, you could have them respawn as the cops, and then their objective, instead of fleeing from the killer, is to get the others out, and even put the killer down if they can or something. That there's a lot you could do. That's just like the tip of the iceberg, first thought in my head sort of thing that you could do as strange, cool, interesting mechanics that you could add to these. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in future episodes, well, future videos. There will be more Texas Chain Saw Massacre on the channel. I've been playing it a bunch, which means I've been filming it a bunch. Expect a few videos a day for the next few days while it's just in the beta. I want to kind of get a lot of content out quickly, but then anything in excess of that I'll probably just trickle to you over the next few weeks then. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my other videos. I'll see you then.